The air crackled with anticipation. On March 14, 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice building in Washington, D.C. became an unlikely stage for a political drama. Former President Donald J. Trump, fresh off his return to the Oval Office, chose this setting for a speech that would reverberate through the halls of American politics and media. It was a return to the spotlight that many had anticipated, yet few could have predicted the ferocity of the rhetoric that would define this particular address. This was not a policy speech, nor was it a typical victory lap. This was vintage Trump, a fiery torrent of accusations, threats, and pronouncements delivered with his signature blend of showmanship and aggression. The Justice Department, once a symbol of American jurisprudence, was recast as a den of corruption, a department of injustice in the eyes of the newly minted president. Trump was back and he had scores to settle. The audience, a mix of Justice Department employees and invited guests, sat in stunned silence as Trump unleashed his verbal assault. Gone was the conciliatory tone often struck by returning presidents. In its place was a raw, unfiltered display of anger and resentment directed at those Trump deemed responsible for his past legal troubles and perceived mistreatment by the media. This was not a speech aimed at uniting a divided nation, but rather one designed to galvanize his base and intimidate his opponents. The Justice Department speech, delivered just weeks into his second term, offered a stark reminder of the political climate that had returned with Trump to the White House. It was a climate of confrontation, where institutions were suspect, and the media was the enemy. The speech was a declaration of war, a signal that the next 4 years would be anything but ordinary. Trump wasted no time in identifying his targets. The Biden administration and its officials were branded as corrupt, accused of weaponizing the justice system for political gain. He railed against the deep state, claiming it had conspired against him during his first term and vowing to root out those responsible. The accusations, often lacking specific evidence, echoed the rhetoric of his previous campaigns and presidency, playing to his base's deeply held belief that the system was rigged against them. The threats came next, delivered with a chilling matter-of-factness. Trump hinted at legal action against his political rivals, reviving past threats of jailing his opponents. He painted a picture of a lawless opposition, intent on undermining his presidency and destroying the country. The message was clear. Dissent would not be tolerated, and those who dared to challenge him would face the full force of his wrath. Federal employees, particularly those within the Justice Department, were not spared from Trump's ire. He defended his decision to fire those he deemed disloyal, including prosecutors involved in investigations against him. These individuals, he declared, were Marxist and corrupt, part of the swamp he had vowed to drain. The dismissals raised serious concerns about the politicization of the Justice Department and the erosion of its independence. Trump's speech was not merely a series of accusations and threats, it was a carefully constructed narrative designed to solidify his hold on power. By painting himself as a victim of a vast conspiracy, he sought to delegitimize any criticism and justify his own actions, however extreme they might seem. This tactic, honed over years in the public eye, had proven remarkably effective in the past, and there was little reason to believe it would not work again. As the speech progressed, Trump turned his attention to a familiar foe, the media. He unleashed a blistering attack on news organizations, particularly those he deemed critical of his administration. CNN and MSNBC were singled out for special condemnation, accused of peddling fake news and deliberately misleading the American people. Trump claimed that 97.6% of their coverage of him was negative, a figure seemingly plucked from thin air, but one that resonated with his base's distrust of mainstream media. The media, Trump argued, were not merely biased but actively complicit in the supposed conspiracy against him. He accused them of influencing judges and juries, of poisoning public opinion with their relentless negativity. He labeled them the enemy of the people, a dangerous and irresponsible phrase that further eroded trust in journalism and emboldened those who sought to silence dissenting voices. Trump's praise for Judge Aileen Cannon, who had presided over his classified documents case, further blurred the lines between the executive and judicial branches. By publicly lauding a judge who had ruled favorably towards him, Trump sent a clear message to the judiciary. Loyalty would be rewarded, and independence would be punished. The attack on the media was not an afterthought, it was central to Trump's strategy. By discrediting the messengers, he could more effectively control the narrative. His supporters, already distrustful of mainstream media, were further encouraged to view any negative coverage as evidence of a conspiracy, strengthening their allegiance to Trump and his alternative reality. The reverberations of Trump's Justice Department speech were felt almost immediately. The following day, employees at the Voice of America, VOA, a taxpayer-funded international broadcaster, were placed on administrative leave. This was followed by a presidential order eliminating the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM, VOA's parent company, along with 6 other agencies. These moves, presented as cost-saving measures, were widely seen as an attempt to silence critical voices and consolidate control over government-funded media outlets. The White House Correspondents Association was stripped of its control over the press pool, with the administration now hand-picking which journalists were granted access to the president. The Associated Press, AP, one of the world's largest news organizations, was banned from the Oval Office and Air Force One following a dispute over the naming of the Gulf of Mexico. Trump demanded the AP use the term Gulf of America, a seemingly trivial demand that highlighted his obsession with controlling the narrative and punishing those who defied him. These actions sent shockwaves through the media landscape, raising fears of a return to authoritarianism and a crackdown on press freedom. The message was clear: challenge the administration's narrative and you will be punished. The cumulative effect of Trump's words and actions was a chilling erosion of trust in institutions, from the justice system to the free press. Trump's Justice Department speech, delivered with his trademark blend of bluster and menace, marked a dangerous turn in American politics. It was a stark reminder that the guardrails of democracy, weakened but not broken during his first term, were now facing an even greater threat. The speech was not merely an attack on his opponents, it was an assault on the very foundations of a free and open society. The question remained: would America stand idly by as those foundations crumbled, or would it find the strength to resist the slide into authoritarianism?